If you look in the description box down below, you will see my linebacker rankings for the 2014 NFL Draft. And keep in mind, these linebacker rankings combine 4-3 outside linebackers, 3-4 outside linebackers are guys that I project to play 3-4 outside linebacker at the NFL level, inside linebackers for both the 3-4 and the 4-3. What I will say about this year's class of linebackers is that traditional 4-3 outside linebackers, not a great class for them. Inside linebackers, really not a great class at all. But the outside 3-4 edge rushers, this is actually a pretty good class in this 2014 NFL Draft. Now, to me, the cream of the crop is Khalil Mack from Buffalo. This has been a guy I've been high on all throughout the 2013 college football season, and I've envisioned for a lengthy period of time being a top 5 pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, if not being a guy that goes top 3 or maybe number 1 overall. To me, when I look at a Khalil Mack, the absolute farthest that I could possibly, in any crazy scenario, see him going would be maybe number 6 to Atlanta. That's it. Anything above that is where I really think he'll end up. And I've got him rated as a top 5 overall prospect in the 2014 NFL Draft. I think in terms of Khalil Mack, you're talking about a player. I've seen some people that have compared him a little bit to an Aaron Curry. I don't think that's fair because for every Aaron Curry, there is a Von Miller. And we're also talking about a guy that's playing a different scheme than the 4-3 as a strong side backer. We're talking about a 3-4 outside linebacker, and Khalil Mack has a complete game. He's a guy that can disrupt backfields as a pass rusher. He's solid against the run, and he's also decent, to say the very least, defending against opposing tight ends in the passing game. He's that kind of versatile outside linebacker you love to have if you're running a 3-4 defense, and I think Khalil Mack is going to be a special player in the National Football League. Now, when you look at this class, again, like I said, you'll notice that it's very much dominated by 3-4 outside linebackers because I feel that's where the strength of this linebacker class is. You may be a little surprised to see Carl Bradford from Arizona State, number 2 on my list as a first-round pick. When I look at Bradford, I see a guy with that big play ability, that explosive ability off the edge. Now, granted, he played a lot of defensive end at Arizona State, so it's kind of hard sometimes to project a guy in a 3-4 coming out of that 4-3 where he played with his hand on the ground. But by God, you saw a guy that consistently demonstrated an ability to get into the backfield of the opposition, a guy who overshadowed Will Sutton this past year for that Arizona State Sun Devils defense. This is a guy that has that explosive ability that you really like to see out of a 3-4 outside linebacker. He's a guy that makes all types of plays. He's really good in run support. He's really good in backside pursuit, but his biggest skill to me that he has in great abundance is as an explosive speed edge rusher. Other guys like Dee Ford, I think, have some of those similar characteristics. Another outside linebacker that you see rated very high on my board is Jeremiah Attaochu out of Georgia Tech. I see him being rated as like a 2nd to 3rd round pick or a 3rd round pick by a lot of places. I don't see that. I see a guy that does project very well to a 3-4. If somebody takes him in a 4-3, I think that's a mistake. I don't know if he can play in that scheme. But in a 3-4 where you give him the primary job to rush the quarterback, he may be more explosive than Dee Ford. He may be more explosive and physical than Carl Bradford. He's a hell of a prospect, and I think somebody is going to get a real steal out of him in rounds 2 or rounds 3. Now, in terms of linebackers that I look at and I feel are underrated and may end up being steals at the NFL level, again, I'll go to the 3-4 outside edge rushers. I look at guys like Kyle Van Noy from BYU. I was surprised, frankly, that he didn't declare last year for the 2013 NFL Draft, but he's a guy that I think has a nice balanced skill set. He may never be a stud, but I think he's going to be a solid player for a long period of time. A guy that's really flown under the radar is Prince Shembo from Notre Dame. I can't believe that this guy doesn't get more publicity and more love because I've seen a guy that can make plays all over the football field and a guy that I've really been impressed with. A couple of inside linebackers that I really like too that'll probably go somewhere in the middle of the draft, but I think have some long-term NFL starter potential. That's Chris Borland from Wisconsin. You know, he has some injury history, has those really short arms, but damn it all, this is a guy that's tough. He can play in the middle of your defense, be a leader, and is a real physical presence. And Jordan Zumwalt from UCLA, who I think is a more athletic player than a Chris Borland, but he might not be as polished necessarily at this point in time, but is athletic intangibles for the middle linebacker position, I think, are very good. You'll notice that I have C.J. Mosley kind of ranked there towards the top of round number 2. I think it's one of these things where he was frankly better in 2012 than he was in 2013. Maybe he was overburdened by the scheme and the responsibilities that he's given by Nick Saban and that Alabama defense this past season. I still think he's a guy that could be a day one starter at middle linebacker and be a starter at middle linebacker for 8 to 10 years in the National Football League. If my Chicago Bears, let's say, for example, stumbled into him in the middle of round number 2, would I be ecstatic? Oh, absolutely. But I don't think he's the top 10, top 15, top 20 prospect that a lot of people have viewed him as for the past year. You're talking about a history of Alabama players that in recent years in the draft haven't really panned out all that much. You have those exceptions to the rules, the guys like the Marcel Dariuses of the world, but there are a lot of early and mid-round disappointments coming from that Alabama program. You throw in C.J. Mosley's injury history, I think, frankly, spending a first-round pick on him is a bit of a stretch. So you can go ahead and look in the description box down below, look at my linebacker ratings for this 2014 NFL Draft. Let me know what you think. Let me know who you think I've underrated, who you think I've overrated, who you think I've underrated or rated just right. I'm sure my rankings, like in so many cases, will be a lot different and very divergent from a lot of the other ones that you've seen out there. But again, I'm going based off of what I've seen with my own eyeballs, not worrying about what other people say, not worrying about other stupid groupthink that you get every year when it comes to the NFL Draft. I've got one more set of positions to go, and that's the defensive backs. And then it'll be time to be ready, finally, for the 2014 NFL Draft. Make sure you check out the 2004 NFL Draft Preview podcast on Blog Talk Radio, Wednesday, May 7th at 10 p.m. Eastern. The link to that will be in the description box down below. Thank you.